All right, welcome everybody to episode 2 of Dr. Christian Show. Still figuring out what this is. Episode 1 was fun though, and I figure let's just keep doing this until I get tired of it. The point of this is I want to hang out with you. That's it. So listen, don't listen, but let's hang because when I hang out with my friends, they don't listen anyway. So might as well do that on camera, right? Excuse me, I'm still stuffy. I've had this chronic sinusitis for God knows how many months. Anyway, here we are, man. It is the middle of the summer here in New York, and it has been extremely on and off with the weather, up and down, rainy, sunny, hot, kind of cool sometimes, really hot. So, but it splits up the summer like that. Like when the weather is up and down, you kind of I want to just get a nice consistent sense of summer, But I'll take it. I don't care. Rainy, a little cool, really hot. I will take it because uh, I don't know if anybody else feels this way, but winters in New York are starting to get unbearable. Like I don't remember as a kid winters being this cold, this frigid. I remember a lot more snow because I think it was warmer than it has been where it can snow. I don't know if this is a scientific fact or not, but sometimes it feels like New York is getting too cold to have a lot of snow. So somebody let me know if that's just in my head or if that's real. My wife and I, though, are starting to get interested, as many New Yorkers are, about moving to the Carolinas. There is a guy on TikTok. His name is Uncle Bobby. I don't know if any of you guys follow him, but man, you watch enough of his videos. He's a Long Islander who moved to the Carolinas, and you watch enough of his videos, you're like, this guy is starting to make a lot of sense. You get a 5 or 6 bedroom house out there for between $300,000 to $500,000. That ain't buying you nothing on Long Island where I live. And then taxes are what, 3,000 a year, something like that. Winters, they don't go below 35 degrees. And even in the middle of the winter, the high goes up to still like 60, 65. I mean, what am I doing here? Sometimes that's what I think. Like, why am I still here on Long Island? Like, what is this place really? Is it really worth staying here? But of course, like when you're married, you're tied to your family and your in-laws and all of that stuff. So plus, business and all that. It's hard being a New Yorker because it's hard being in here. Look at me complaining. I mean, just roll with it for the sake of the show. Uh, but yeah, when you're born and raised here in the New York area, it's very hard to remove yourself from it. A lot of people do successfully, and then they never look back. But what is it about though the age of retirement? I get that moving to Florida the way everybody has for generations when they retire, it's good on your joints because of the warmer weather and all that. But what happens to the psychological hold that New York has on every New Yorker? Like that just lifts when you're older? I'm very interested to know what that is because everybody my age, at least in my circle that I talk to about leaving New York and trying to maybe go discover other areas, they're like, never, I'll never leave New York. New York ride or die till death, blah blah blah. And I'm like, where does the switch? Because I'm reaching my threshold where I'm like, this is not worth it here anymore. It's at least how I feel. I don't know. But if you think I'm wrong, I'd be interested to hear your take in the comments. I like Long Island though. Long Island, aside from the crappy weather in the winter and the insane traffic and driving here and the insane prices, which overall makes it not worth living here, it is an upgrade from where I grew up on Staten Island. That is for sure. But getting back to Staten Island to visit family sucks because trying to traverse the Belt Parkway is pretty much, I think, every New Yorker that ends up going to hell uh, after living a bad life, they're going to go and sit in Belt Parkway traffic eternally. I think that's going to be with a full bladder. That's hell for New Yorkers. Um, but other than that, than those inconveniences, I actually love Long Island. I work in the city from time to time. I used to work in the city a lot more for stand up. I've largely stopped taking gigs or seeking gigs even in Manhattan proper because, dude, it's chaos. People love Manhattan. Hot take here, hot take. I do not like Manhattan. I mean, Manhattan's cool if you have like interests, and then there are hubs there. So like as a comedian or if you're a comedy fan, it's fun, or Broadway or all that stuff. But other than that, dude, like, come on, man. Back in the, from what I'm gathering, I don't know much about history at all, but I watch shows like The Gilded Age or, Bridgerton or all these early shows, these shows from earlier times, England, and then the culture spilled from England into early America. The cities, I think, were cheaper to live in. There were no suburbs. I think am I wrong, right about this? Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. But what I'm gathering is there was inner city living, right? Everybody was living in cities in cheap apartment housing, and if you were rich, you got a nice, beautiful mansion, right, on the Upper East Side or something. Even back then, it was. Um, but like said, let's say in England, right? That show Bridgerton, everybody was like living in a city area, and then there was the country. So if you had like a nice estate in the country, that was for the rich folk, or I guess farmers. But the in between suburb living. But so now people are living in the cities, and it's not, what's affordable in New York. I think the Lower East Side is probably one of the last neighborhoods that's affordable for people who aren't like investment banker, you know, level of income. But what would possess you to? I mean, you're making hundreds of thousands of dollars just to be able to afford to live in a studio rental, right? I don't see it. And then it's chaos and all that. So this might be largely like my age. I've crossed the 40-year-old mark. And so maybe, but you know what? I'm glad. I am really embracing. I'm not old at all, but I'm not super young either. I'm what young people would call unk status, but man, I am embracing it. I love everything about. I look at these things that TV makes fun of old people for, like recliner chairs, soccer mom vans, comfortable Velcro sneakers. I look at all that. I'm like, all that makes sense, man. Function first, comfort first. Who cares about trends or styles or anything like that? I don't care at all. I want to feel I'm ready to retire. I'm only early 40s and I'm already ready to retire. I don't know if anybody else feels that way, but yeah, so where is this going? Where am I? Oh, because Long Island. So Long Island's just comfortable for me, man. I love it here. I like going out east, and my wife and I have this little thing that we do on weekends that are free, where we try to hop to different main streets, different villages on Long Island. So last week we just hit up Sayville. I've never been. I lived out by Sayville for a few years, but I actually never went to the village, and it's so cute, man. Yeah, Long Island is awesome. Like, there's so much to see here. It really is a very comfortable place to live. But the traffic is horrendous, and if it was up to me, about 85% of people on the road would lose their license driving, because it is kind of crazy here. All right, what am I talking about? Long Island. Long Island. That's enough of that. So yeah, man. So it's summer. It's New York, but I'm thinking about going down to the Carolinas. My wife and I we're flirting with the idea of moving out there, because it just seems like a better quality of life. But let me know what you guys think. If there's anybody here from the Carolinas who ends up watching that, and then we're confused. Like, all right, what's better for our age? We're both around the same age, late 30s, early 40s. My wife and I, and so it's between South and North. But I don't know. The pros and cons are not very clear as to what outweighs what. North Carolina, I know, is a little bit more booming with opportunity in the Raleigh area. But then you got the beauty and the comfort of Myrtle. One thing I know, though, I don't really care to go to any of those New York transplant hubs like Charleston. That's where Uncle Bobby from TikTok lives. Shout out to that guy. I love your content, but I'm looking at the prices there, and I'm like, it would defeat the purpose of leaving New York. Then I might as well just stay in New York. Like, it's great to have more sunshine, but I also want cheaper prices. And from what I understand, a lot of those transplant areas are just as expensive as New York. So, not sure I'm really interested in doing all that. But if you're from the Carolinas and you happen to watch this, let me know, because we're really trying to figure this one out. Raleigh looks cool, though. It seems it seems like it's a pop in place, and I think it's a technology hub, right? From what I'm hearing, I'm not sure. Got to look more into it. But the Greenville area in South Carolina really looks nice. That whole area really looks nice. I'm in healthcare. It seems like they've got like good healthcare job opportunities out there. So I'm trying to figure that out. Um, yeah, man. New York, though, would be very hard for me to leave, though. I'm not going to leave up and leave here without some, I guess, some detachment issues because I've been here my whole life and I've pretty much either worked or lived in every borough, plus upstate, plus Nassau and Suffolk County of Long Island. And it's just nothing really compares to New York. All the different boroughs have something, you know. Even Westchester, very beautiful. I lived in White Plains for a little bit, and that was nice. So, but I was like, yeah, I got to get back to Long Island after a couple of years out there. Um, Queens is definitely. I mean, it's a lot less village and warm than Staten Island, but it's convenient, which is nice. You got the airports right there, so just go anywhere you want. If you live there, that's a pretty convenient thing to have. And then the diversity of Queens is also, if you're into that, I am personally. So if not everybody's into that, if you're not into that, then don't live in Queens. But if you do, if you are into a nice diverse atmosphere, that's Queens, Brooklyn, the Bronx, even Staten Island. Staten Island is a lot more diverse than it gets credit for. People, the stereotype is always like the Italian American. You don't really hear too much of the Irish thing either, even though the neighborhood I grew up in was largely Irish. But there are a lot of different communities represented on Staten Island, um, and some that I haven't seen a lot of in other places. So, for example, Albanian people, that was a Staten Island novelty for me. I didn't meet anybody. I've never met it, but I think there are other hubs in New York City. You could let me know if there are, but yeah, that was a big part of growing up. Going to my high school was there was a large Albanian population, a lot of Asian people, a lot of black people. There were not a lot of Middle Eastern people on my side of the island, but there are now all over Staten Island. There's a lot of Middle Eastern people there now. So it is a lot more diverse than it gets credit for. All right, let's move on. Actually, a good segue to my next topic is being an American. This was something I was thinking about, and I was giving it some thought. And I'm like, you really don't hear enough about it, about like from an American's um, perspective of being thankful to be an American. Like there's a lot of like, yeah, America's number one, especially when it comes to discussing issues of immigration or other countries or any of that. And then there's a lot of using the best interest of what's really at the best interest of this country when one side rivals the other, right versus left. But what I mean to say is that the concept of let's just be proud of being an American to start with, right? Which is something that should unify both the right and the left. I wish the culture was moving in that direction of unity versus this, you know, this national divorce attitude that I'm seeing more and more of on social media. But I was giving it some thought, and I'm like, man, I am lucky to have grown up here. I really am. I almost didn't because my father came from Egypt. He came from Egypt because he was dealing with some struggles out there because of his religion. We're in the minority of Egyptians. We are Christians. And so my father, who was a physician, when he was living in Egypt, he wanted a specific position at a medical school as a professor. And the guy who was in charge pulled him aside and he was like, listen, man, I like you personally, but where we're at in today's society in this country, you being a Christian, you're just not going to get that position. So my dad was like, all right, well, I'm out. And God worked that tough experience for my benefit because I got to grow up. I got to be born and grow up. I'm born and raised here and in New York of all. Like for me is, one of the greatest cities in the world. And it's largely who I am. I'm very outspoken about being a proud Coptic American, but even more than the Coptic thing, I will say I'm proud to be an American. I mean, my number one, it goes in order, right, for different people of different things of that they. So I'm really proud of my identity as a Christian, even though I'm not a good Christian, but I hold to my pride in that. Um, And then from there, I'm Egyptian American, I'm Coptic American, but I am American. I'm not really pure Egyptian. I'm proud of my heritage though, and my ancestry and all of that. But I'm an American dude through and through, and I'm proud of that. And I don't, that has nothing to do with being a Republican or a Democrat. I'm just proud to have been part of the generation that was born in the 80s and grew up in the 90s and got to see this country change vastly a million times over, pre and post internet and pre and post 9/11 and pre and post COVID. And I think my generation of people who were born and grew up in the times that I did can agree that it's been some ride. It's built character, right? You see this all the time with millennials. We're called millennials, right? I'm reminding myself. Millennials get a lot of heat from other generations, which is so corny, by the way. Whenever I hear of a generation, like I see these videos of one generation slamming another, shut up, dude. Like, you're not funny. It's not funny to me. Oh, yeah, you're a millennial. Meh, 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 meh. Yeah, yeah. I'm proud to be a millennial. I've gotten screwed a zillion times over, and I'm not complaining about it. But what I mean to say is, it's built my character. All right. So just save it. All right, save it. I'm a proud millennial, though. Proud millennial, baby. That's right. And but yeah, it was a fun time to grow up in the '90s, and even the 2000s. I was in college by the year 2003, and yeah, dude, it was just fun. The music on the radio was fun. The party culture back then was fun. I was never into like drugs or anything like that, but I went away to college and I did, I had a good time. Like it was cool. I went to college upstate. I went to SUNY school upstate, and if you're not familiar, upstate is beautiful aesthetically. A lot of mountains up there, and all these kids from the city and from Long Island pour upstate into those campuses. And you have these small towns like Syracuse or Albany or New Paltz, and it's just a town overrun by college kids from freshman all the way to senior year. And you start off freshman year living in the dorms, and you pick a different, whatever style you think your personality. You really don't know. You got to make a guess because you've never done something like this before. So would I rather live in one room with just one other dude, and with the door that opens up into the hallway, and then there's a big shared bathroom, and they call that corridor style? Or do I want to live in a suite concentrated where I'm living in a room with somebody, but then there's like all these different pairs of roommates living in a mini apartment that doesn't really have its own kitchen? That's what the SUNY campus experience was like. And so you got to pick that. And then from there, you got your campus, right? Whatever you're studying. And then it's just a town. It's just this upstate town that is not nearly as stressed out as any of the five boroughs of New York City. People are chilling. A lot of hippies up there. Hippie culture is big. I grew up in the '90s on Staten Island, so everybody had a gangster phase. Everybody grew up who grew up on Staten Island had a gangster phase. It was kind of interesting too because living on Staten Island, there's subcultures within Staten Island. So I grew up on the North Shore, and the North Shore and the South Shore, both heavily Irish Italian presence. And to the untrained eye, from an outsider's perspective, somebody who didn't grow up on Staten Island, they would look the same. But um, if you grew up on Staten Island, you were very well versed in North Shore and South Shore kids hated each other, or there was a rivalry, right? And even though they were the same Irish Italian kids, the kids on the North Shore would call the South Shore kids Guidos. Those are the Guidos of the South Shore. So largely like what you would see on that show, MTV's not Seaside Heights, what's it called? Oh, Jersey Shore. That culture was largely the stereotype, and the North Shore kids hated that. And I actually did notice, I don't know if anybody would agree with me on this, but there was even a style, like a clothing style difference. Because on the South Shore, everybody was kind of wearing Diesel, the brand Diesel, and they were shopping at a store called Image, and it was like spiky, hair. And but then on the North Shore, it was a lot more like sports. It was a lot more like, even the white kids though, rocking like Nike, and even some different brands from the South Shore. So there was a lot of like South Pole, North Face, um, Fat Farm, I think it was called, Carl Canai. Um, but these were, the same kid, like demographic of culture, kind of. But there were differences. I don't know if that existed in other places too. I mean, I'm sure every borough had like its different neighborhood kids, but yeah, that was kind of interesting. That was a very subtle difference, but it wasn't subtle then. But looking back, I'm like, yeah, that's weird. I don't think most people know Staten Island's like subset of rivalries. Anyway, this is going off the rails. What am I talking about this for? Well, anyway, yeah. So college was fun, and then so you get to junior senior year, and then everybody. The thing is, like, if you still live on campus, what are you doing? You're not a freshman, so everybody gets an apartment, and they start throwing house parties, and you're kind of like older now. You're 21 and 22 years old. You're the big seasoned wise, you know, uh, kids on campus type of thing. You're transitioning, getting ready for your life out of college. But 21, 22. I mean, when I was 21, 22, I was mighty young in the mind. Um, I'm not trying to slam age though, because there are plenty of people those age who went to go fight in a war, or who raised children. So age is but a number. But I'm just laughing back thinking about how my friends and I were on campus back then. But yeah, man. So it was fun going to college, upstate. I like New York a lot. It gave me my whole experience. I've only lived in two places, and New York, and just like for summer camp, my parents sent me to Egypt and a monastery. That's it. Those are my two experiences. Both are random, or not both are random. It's a random combination. I mean to say, but that's it. I haven't really done. I'm a stand-up comedian, and a lot of the comics in the community, the network of comedians in New York City, are a lot of people from Middle America or California or Arizona that have lived a bunch of different places, and then they finally come to New York and they go hard trying to make it in show business. Every time I hear a story like that, I'm like, dude, respect, because people who live in Suffolk County think going to Nassau County is a journey. Like they're like, that's way too far. Meanwhile, you got other people who are so driven and motivated. They're willing to live anywhere if it means success. I look up to those people, man. I really do. It's a whole other level of grind and dedication. All right. Um, so that's what it is. I hope you guys are enjoying your summers. I think I've ranted enough here, so that's going to be it for this episode. But if I didn't mention it already, I may have. I can't remember. The one reflection I had this week was, because the first episode we talked about identity and purpose, and so again, I just was thinking, I'm like, I got to mention it on this episode. Um, Discovering something that's bigger than you that you can live for, I feel like has really contributed to who I am and made me keep going during times where I felt like, man, like, why should I keep going type of thing. I mean, I never really struggled that much with that, but every human being comes to a place where they're like, well, what am I doing here? What's the purpose of this? Who am I? What's my identity? What am I? And then for me, I was like, I was never satiated with the concept of like, I'm going to build as much as I can for my own empire. Life always seemed way more appealing when I thought of bigger things than I could possibly build on my own that I can contribute to. And so that is a big one. That's a big one. That if you're struggling with identity or purpose, um, look for something that you feel like is a worthy cause, that's bigger than you, that you can contribute to. Because boy, is it such a good feeling to know, like, hey, I'm part of something that's bigger than me, that we together are contributing to, that's going to make a difference, that's going to leave a legacy, that's going to help people on a wide scale, versus I'm just trying to build up my own little nest egg, because nobody can take any of that with them anyway. So, all right, guys, until next time, my name is Christian. It's been great chilling with you. Let's do it again soon. Peace.